So as you can see, I have a lot of Fire Maple gear. But today we're going to talk about this piece specifically, and that is the Saturn Stove. We're going to cover the features and some of my overall thoughts in this video. But before we get into that, I'm Meanderin Mitch, and Fire Maple has actually sent me all the gear you're seeing in front of you. And I've been putting it through some pretty good tests just to see how exactly it holds up. And we're going to go over it and see what some of the thoughts are. I think you might be surprised by some of the features and details of this particular stove though. So without further ado, let's get into that. So we're going to start with the features of this thing, but before we do that, I am curious on what you're here for in this video. Are you more curious about the features of the stove or for my thoughts? I'm just kind of curious. So if you don't mind, if you could drop it in the comments, I'd really appreciate that. Just so for future videos, I can include more of what you guys are looking for. But let's actually get into it now. To start with, one of my favorite parts of this stove is the carrying case that it comes in. It's actually really nice quality, and it's really convenient to have everything in there together, minus the gas tank, which is obviously not going to fit in there. As far as features for the stove, you may have noticed that when we started this video, that this was actually sitting on the table, and now it's elevated. So one of the features that this stove comes with is adjustable legs, which get you a little bit off the ground, and actually can be a little more extending if you would prefer. Just getting it a little higher. It is necessary to use that if you would like to invert your tank, which does give you a lot better control over your flame, at least in cold temperatures. I have not tried this in really hot temperatures yet, but it was a little chilly, maybe 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and it definitely improved the flow much better. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, there is a magnet on the bottom that your gas tank will stick to, and inverts your tank just to give it better flow. Additionally, as far as cold weather goes, there are some preheat tubes on the burner itself, and this is to heat up the gas before it goes through the burner, just to give you a smoother flame, and again, to control the flame a lot better. And it does seem to work, at least in the temperatures that I've tried it so far. So that is a really cool thing that I think they added, that they didn't really have to add, but for this particular one, makes a big difference. Now I will say the arms on top of the stove are definitely a little bit bigger than a lot of the camping stoves that I've used at this size, but it is pretty on par with what I imagine you're going to want to use for a stove of this size. So that being said, if you have any like really small backpacking pots or pans, they're probably not going to fit on this. The arms are pretty far apart, but I'm assuming if you're using this thing, it's probably car camping, and you can use just a normal sized pot or even one of the smaller cast irons would fit on this thing pretty well, just not anything super tiny. So if you're trying to use something super small, this probably isn't for you. But if you're looking to use but if you're using to like make some eggs in a skillet, this thing would work, or a steak, or whatever you're gonna use. But this thing can handle some bigger pans. So again, I think that's a good feature, but some people might not, depending on what you use. And one of my favorite things that I really don't know why almost all burners don't include this, but it has a igniter built into it. I really hate having to get a lighter or a match or whatever you might have to turn on my stove. So having the igniter on there is a huge perk to me. And I don't like stoves unless they have it. And the fact that it's on the leg is really convenient also, because it's away from everything that could be hot, and it's just really easy to get to and use. That is all the features of this particular stove. But now let's talk about my thoughts. So overall, I absolutely love this stove. I actually just used it on a trip with a couple friends, and we cooked on this thing pretty much the entire weekend. We did have a good bit of people, so we used some additional stoves as well, but everyone said the exact same thing. This stove had the best flame control out of any of the stoves that we had using, and this includes some different griddles and stuff like that. So the fact that it was so consistently praised for its flame control and how you could simmer something or you could sear something and all the stuff in between was actually really cool. And it being not just my opinion makes me feel a little bit better about relaying that to you guys. Admittedly, I do have a thing where if I have a new piece of gear, I think it's the best thing in the entire world. But to have other people say the same thing, again, makes me feel just a little bit better. Additionally, I do think it's really cool that it will perform in cold weather. I've only used it in kind of cold weather. I think the coldest it got was like 37 degrees, 36 degrees Fahrenheit. But I do plan on using it a lot this winter for some actual cold weather camping. So I will update you guys on that if you would like to see it. Overall, I think for the price, this thing is an absolute steal. And if you use my code Mitch10, you actually get 10% off your purchase. And depending on when you're watching this, they have some really good deals going on all throughout the year. But pretty much around any major holiday are there better deals. So if you want to buy something, maybe wait till then. But don't forget to use my code Mitch10 to get an additional 10% off your purchase. And it does help me out just a little bit, so I do appreciate that. Those are my thoughts. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. I will love to answer any questions, concerns about this thing, and kind of go from there. But that's all I got. Until next time, I appreciate you. Peace.